All right, welcome to the fourth and final review of the evening. Up this time is Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space, or I guess more properly but more informally, Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space Remastered. Because I think I might have predicted this a year ago when we covered the first season of Sam and Max. Um, I said that we would probably see the remastering of the second season about a year from then. And lo and behold, here we are. Uh, Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space. This is the second season of the Telltale Sam and Max series. It's like as it follows Sam and Max, you know, as the revamped titles. It was not originally called Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space. No. When this originally came out on the GameTap service, it was just Sam and Max Season 2. I guess they felt that lacked punch for the compilation scene. So they added the Beyond Time and Space to the nomenclature, which is accurate because, Sam and Max do go back and forth through time and space to do various things depending on the episode. Like the episode 1, Ice Station Santa, starts out with you having to save Santa Claus from a demon possession, and this will escalate all its way up to episode 5, What's New, Beelzebub, where Sam and Max have to save a bunch of souls from hell. These are the very, very basic descriptions of what happens in those 2 episodes. There's a lot more that goes on, but in terms of Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space as a game, there's not much for me to say, honestly, that I haven't already said last year. It is the remastering of the classic Telltale series. It plays better than the original version. Like, they smoothed out and refined some of the kinks that existed in the... this was still early days for the Telltale tool. Also, this is when the Telltale games were still imitating or going with the traditional point-and-click controls. So, they made those better. Like, you can make Max run smoother and stuff like that. But, the improvements aren't amazingly advanced from where they were. I'd say where the most work has been done is in the graphics and the sound, especially the graphics. Like, that's the thing that really stands out, because you go look at the original versions of the Sam and Max games, at least season 1 and 2, they look fairly rough these days, because this game came out in, over the course of 2007 and 2008, which is about 14 years ago, let's say. And keep in mind, Sam & Max Season 2 was the 3rd overall project that Telltale worked, or 4th. Let's see. Well, it was like Texas Hold'em, Telltale Texas Hold'em Poker, Bone, Sam & Max Season 1, Sam & Max Season 2. Now, so it's not, it wasn't going to be that much different. And it was only done about a year after Sam & Max Saved the World. So it was more advanced than the first season, but not by a whole lot. This, the likes of which can be on display here. Like Sam & Max Beyond Time and Space, The remastering is definitely in the lighting system. Like it's got a much more advanced lighting system, a much more robust lighting system. Like you can actually see shadows. The lighting in the original versions was very flat, very basic, very. This looks like something that you'd put on syndicated television versus this more dynamic. Like, oh, hey, we actually. This looks like something from primetime television. Maybe a lower budget movie. Yeah, there's only so much they can do with the technology, I will say. The texture models, the animations, they all look better. I think the strangest choice is some of the color palettes. They've definitely toned that down. Like, I was looking at some footage of the original, and the skyline really sticks out. Because the skyline used to be very, vibrant, say, maybe pink, orange, a lot of brighter, not just in tone, but in appearance. In the remaster here, the skyline is this cloudy blue, and I'm not sure why they did that. I gotta say, I didn't really like that change. In regards to other adjustments, probably some more re-recorded stuff to get rid of the stuff from the mid to late 2000s that hasn't aged well. Though I haven't seen nearly as much complaining. Either people have accepted it, or this game just came out a couple of days ago. I was working with a pre-release version, so there just hasn't been as much time to compile. And I guess the other major difference is you can actually buy this edition now. The old version still delisted, and that's probably coming back. It's just, it is in line with last year's remastered package, and you can see things. It actually kind of mirroring the original release. They do the phone gag in this series. In fact, episode 5 is one of the few times Max actually gets the phone, because Tel literally froze over. It's not the only time that's happened, but usually when Max answers the phone, it's because something went really, really wrong. Not really going to talk about Sam and Max as characters or, the game as a whole, because, once again, it mirrors the original release. It's very much a continuation of the first season. It's just you can see that the developers have improved their situation and their technical know-how from last year. And that was very
also they're, I won't say they're but they're one of the templates for the pairing of complete random maniac and companion straight man who is not actually as normal as they probably come across as in comparison.
I think what separates what separates the Telltale series from every other incarnation of Sam and Max is the supporting cast. This definitely has the strongest supporting cast, and then I actually built the supporting cast. And even brought over a few characters from the comics. Like, this season introduces Flint Paper to the Telltale universe. He's a character who was originally born from the comics. Bosco's an interesting case of this. because he was and wasn't a character before this series. That is
one
to
of
say,
those strictly off-screen people, wasn't he?
Yep. Bosco's Inconvenience existed in other media, like I think he shows up in the television series, for example. But Bosco was never shown until this game series, and he very much becomes one of the main supporting characters. Along with Sybil Pandemic, the head of the Abe Lincoln statue from the Lincoln Memorial. Long story there. There's a lot of long stories behind some of these characters. Like a prominent supporting character introduced this season is Girl Stinky. I could go on. Like others return, like the cops, a bunch of outdated objects of technology, let's say. Like you have an old office phone, a 1970s, Pong console, a arcade machine from the 1980s, and I'm trying to remember the fourth guy. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Point is, there's a lot of supporting characters. As an adventure game, everything is very solid, though one of the weird quirks of the Telltale engine was you can't combine inventory items. Not sure why that happened. But it definitely was a reduction in the puzzles, arguably for the better. Inventory combination puzzles were never my favorite thing. But, it plays like a point-and-click adventure game. Season 3 is where things are going to get interesting in that regard, because that's when they shifted the series over to the full 3D control scheme, which was first introduced in Wallace and Gromit, if I'm remembering correctly. The thing about the 3D control scheme is that works much better with a controller than a keyboard and mouse. Oh, right. It was a early 1980s computer, like something modeled off the Commodore PET. Anyway, the games are still good, and they're still short. Every episode's going to last you about 3 hours in total. Keep in mind the original release of this was one episode after another, about every 2 months. So they were cut. That was one of the original promises of the episodic model. Shorter games, but they come out faster. That never really worked out in the cases that weren't really Telltale, but I think we've talked about that before. It's just kind of really hard to talk about, because these seasons are very similar. And on that note, Sam & Max Beyond Time and Space, the complete package here, is going for $19.99, $20, and is also out on the Nintendo Switch and Xbox Series. Not sure why they're not on the PlayStation. Probably a legal thing or something of that nature. Also worth noting, there is a bundle here by Sam & Max plus Beyond Time and Space bundle, which is $30. And absolutely purchase these together, because I couldn't really recommend starting your Sam & Max journey with Beyond Time and Space, because it's season 2, and there isn't, let's say, the season, the overarching story of season 1 is different and self-contained to the plot of season 2 in the broad strokes, but there's a lot going on in season 2 that references back to season 1. And there's no fucking Netflix recaps or last time on presentations in these bundles. So if you start here, you're probably going to miss some stuff. Plus, we're only talking about $10 more. The entire package, both seasons are really good. And they're fairly short in the, in the individual construction. I would say, like, every episode is going to take, 2 to 3 hours. I will say this is also the realization of Telltale of what was a good episode count. Sam & Max Save the World clocked in at 6 episodes. This one clocks in at 5. But the overall package is much tighter, much more solid. Like, there's no episode that was as bad as episode 3 of Sam & Max season 1, which was the toy-free mafia episode. Really short and just fairly mediocre. Anyway, point is, if you're gonna get these, get both seasons. And from what I understand, Scuncape Games is working on a remastering of season 3, The Devil's Playhouse. And that is coming next year. If I had to place a wager on that, I'm probably going to be talking about that about a year from now. I can't say definitively, but, just given the history. That being said, I am going to be interested to see how that one comes out, because The Devil's Playhouse actually came out in 2010, if I'm remembering. It was a good 2 to 3 years from the from Time and Space here. And like I said, this is also, this is when they moved to the 3D engine. They had put out other games at this point. They were post Strong Bad and Wallace and Gromit. I'm trying to think if they put out anything else. Not sure if Poker Night at the Inventory came out. Point is that they had done a few more games, and the Telltale tool had gotten more advanced by that point. So, like, I remember season 3 looking really different. Like, it actually looks a lot more like the modern remasters here than it did the previous ones. Don't know all the technical specifications behind that, but anyway, Beyond Time and Space is a worthy purchase, even if you've owned the previous seasons in the original form. The actual touch-ups, like, this is one of those, this is how you do a remaster kind of deal. If you're not too upset at the, re-recorded voice lines and the omission of certain jokes that, didn't age well. We say they didn't age well, but they probably, they were always shitty. It's just the recognition that they were shitty has dawned upon us as a society. Anyway, so that's about it for Sam & Max Beyond Time and Space. That's about it for the review session, and that's about it for the year in reviews. Like I said, not done with the season, but this is the final review of 2021. And, that will be tabulated in our year-end retrospective. Anyway, the week ahead. Speaking of last shows of the year, December 15th on this Wednesday will be our last show of the year. At least last regular show. We might do something during the holiday break. We might not. Depends on how we feel. Petty might do some Final Fantasy 14 streaming. But what I do know is on Wednesday we'll be having John Pickett of Manga Gamer back on the program. Yeah, and we're going to be talking about more of their visual novels. Like, our centerpiece is going to be Horny Elves and a Moral Orc. We're going to see if we'll be able to broadcast that. We were gifted the Steam version, which means it presumably has been edited for content, but sometimes that's not necessarily enough for Twitch. So anyway, if we need to switch out, we've got other visual novels from Manga Gamer lying around. Anyway, until then, I shall wish you good gaming.